Greetings, Quester, and welcome to Tiny Meeples' Big Talk with Matt and Richard.
So, the topic of discussion for this week is, as in the middle of a very difficult political climate and a lot of uncertainty in the world, we wanted to discuss the big issues. So the issue for today is, could Aquaman control Cthulhu?
It is really the question that's on everybody's mind, isn't it?
It is. I'm amazed it's not on Newsnight more.
Yeah. So, this kind of originated when we were talking about possible costumes for Comic-Con. And you had the idea of going as Cthulhu, didn't you? Which,
indeed I did.
Yeah, which, here is Cthulhu. Obviously is the main one of the old ones from the works of H.P. Lovecraft, and obviously he is terrifying. Basically a sea monster, but he actually also came from the stars and has been living underwater. So we were talking about this as you going possibly as him. I don't know how you would manage it. We'll show you.
It would be tricky.
If he manages it, we'll show how it ends up being like.
You will see my shame.
But then sometimes we, if a few of us go together, we would kind of have costumes that are a little bit kind of related to each other, kind of thing. So, because we went as the whole of the Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law team, that was pretty interesting. But so if Matt was going as Cthulhu, then a possible idea would be for me to be like a disciple or something, and could kind of go in first and then summon him, which I like the idea of, but I don't know how it would work, especially with the long queues. I think basically I'd queue up and then get there and then summon you, and then you'd push past everybody and just get into Comic-Con that way.
Much like last time.
Okay, yeah, pretty much. So but then we just got onto this idea of, we just thought of, could Aquaman actually control Cthulhu? Because obviously one of his powers is to control, through telepathy, sea life, basically, and fish, things like that. And Cthulhu lives in the sea. So I think people have thought of this before, but we just didn't have a satisfactory answer, did we? And that was troubling. So.
And I think it's worth putting a bit of background and history to the two characters. Obviously, Cthulhu was invented by H.P. Lovecraft
a long time ago,
and then he was continued on through various other mythos writers like August Derleth, through books produced by Fantasy Flight Games and the games that go with them, the Arkham Horror games, many games based in the Lovecraftian universe. On the other hand, you've also got Aquaman, who's again been around not quite as long as Cthulhu, but still he's been around since the late 30s, early 40s. DC started the Aquaman comics, and Aquaman has become the butt of jokes. Really, there's lots of jokes and memes about how Aquaman is pathetic and his only power is that he talks to fish.
Apparently it started when he was with the Super Friends. That's when he started getting bullied.
That was not a good time for Aquaman. But if you actually go back to the comics, Aquaman is a character that could go toe-to-toe with Superman. He was an incredibly powerful being, has telepathic powers. The idea of him being able to control sea life obviously makes people probably think it would go straight in his favour. It's worth noting he can control other forms of life through his telepathy at times. There's been times when he's controlled other humans. But it's also worth noting that in the DC comic book universe, he has fought and defeated species that were based on the ancient ones, the old ones from H.P. Lovecraft's writings. But they weren't actually the ancient ones from H.P. Lovecraft's writings.
And it was his comic.
Can't just die. No. And anything can happen in comic books, can't they? So I do think...
Yeah, but you can't just say it's not real.
Well,
trying to answer the question.
If you think it's real, it's real. But with regards to the topic in itself, Richard, what do you think?
Well, at first I thought it was quite obvious that he could, because I thought of Cthulhu as being a sea monster. Probably because in the novella Call of Cthulhu, he does kind of rise out of the sea, and so I thought, although obviously he's massive and very intimidating and powerful, that the Aquaman would be able to exert some kind of control over him. But after doing a bit more research about it, I think it very much depends on what incarnation of Cthulhu we're talking about, and which incarnation of Aquaman we're talking about. Because I think we're talking about him, as you say, could go toe to toe with Superman sometimes. He's had different levels of powers in different comics. I think I'd like to think of him when he went through a bit of a difficult period where he grew his hair long and lost a hand, and then he had it replaced with a harpoon, and he went a bit dark for a while. So that's the one I'm going to imagine, which I think at that point he would have stood a fair chance at, if not controlling Cthulhu, then being able to defeat him. Maybe. But in recent years, from what I understand, they've kind of taken a bit of a backpedaled a bit with his telepathic powers. I think mainly because it's become apparent that there's not that much of a mind there in fish for him to actually control. I think they thought they might be a bit more intelligent than they thought.
I think as well it's worth drawing a line in the discussion, because we're not really discussing whether or not he could go toe to toe and take Cthulhu down. We're focusing more on the telepathic control here. As a rule, I've not really given much thought as to who would win in a battle between the two of them. I think probably physically, despite his enormous and powerful nature, Aquaman could probably take on Cthulhu in a battle. But whether or not he could control or command Aquaman. Now, see, I think it depends on which incarnation. Very much like we're talking about which incarnation of Aquaman, which incarnation of Cthulhu we're discussing here. Because when other mythos writers like August Derleth came along, they actually described Cthulhu as being a water elemental creature. Now, there are reasons why I don't agree with that. In Lovecraft's original work, he wasn't a water elemental creature. He was an ancient alien being from beyond the stars. We weren't talking about somebody who typically would live in a sea, despite the fact that he has a head like an octopus, dragon's wings, and a very humanoid-looking body.
Friends with these guys. Yeah, more like these.
Despite those things, he wasn't really a sea creature by nature. In fact, there is evidence in the books that when he was under the sea, his power was actually reduced because of the sea, when he was entombed at the bottom of the ocean in Relaya. So I think to call him a water elemental or sea creature would be a disservice to Cthulhu.
He's offended.
Yeah. So I think if we were taking Aquaman, almost any incarnation of Aquaman, and saying could he control Derleth's version of Cthulhu, I think we would be saying yes, he probably could do that. I think if we were saying could Aquaman control the Cthulhu as described and created by Lovecraft, well, I think Aquaman would be a tasty sea snack for Cthulhu in that scenario. I mean, with regards to the power of his mind, we're talking with Cthulhu about somebody who was able to send dreams and visions to people around the world while being at the bottom of the ocean with his powers weakened. Somebody who could affect reality from that position. Someone who could drive people insane all around the world. How's Aquaman going to defeat that?
Yeah, it's a lot more than just a fish, isn't it? It's a lot more than just controlling the trout that he normally will control to come and help him.
Yeah, it's a being and a mind of unimaginable power. Now, do I think that Cthulhu could fight him? Yes, I do. I think Aquaman would give Cthulhu a good fight, but I don't think that there's any way that Aquaman is powerful enough to reach out and touch Cthulhu's mind and take control. I think if he was to try that, I think he would be going insane.
Yeah, I think he's going insane before he actually got to fight. But we'll have to see what Jason Momoa's like when what that Aquaman's like.
I think we're all waiting to see what Jason Momoa's Aquaman is like. I think
maybe Cthulhu will be in.
I'm fairly sure that the only reason that Jason Momoa was picked for that role was because they wanted somebody who nobody was going to take the mickey out of as Aquaman.
Yeah, maybe. But
finally, Aquaman looks badass again, doesn't he?
But I think he is. Yeah, I think they're going for the troubled Aquaman again.
Yeah.
The very angry version. Just something about the different incarnations that there've been of Aquaman. I think there was a time when they needed him to have a weakness, a bit like Superman's kryptonite. And I think for a while he couldn't live for more than an hour out of the water or something like that. That might have been only for a brief time in the comics, but if it was that Aquaman, then Cthulhu could just come out on land. As soon as he starts attacking Arkham, then Aquaman would be shouting from the sea, stop that. But I think if he could do any of his telepathy with Cthulhu, I think it would just be a little bit of influence. He might be able to slow him down a little bit in order to get a chance. But like you were saying, I think his mind would be far too powerful. So I think basically the answer to whether he can control him or not, I think it would have to be no. But it's a little bit more complicated than we originally thought. Yeah,
there is a number of factors to consider. But again, if we're talking about Lovecraft's version, hands down, Cthulhu is not going to be told what to do by Aquaman. But he ain't the boss of Cthulhu.
But thinking about that topic has been basically a week well spent, hasn't it? Really?
Yes. We could have done so many productive things, but instead we decided to think about who would be able to control who. So there we are.
You can look forward to more interesting and relevant topics like that in future episodes of Meddles and Meeples.
Let us know what you think. Are you a Cthulhu fan? Are you an Aquaman fan? Do you think that Aquaman could control Cthulhu? Well, let us know in the comments.
Are there any Aquaman fans?
Farewell, Quester. To find out about other productions by the Meddlesome Meeples, then check out our channel or rendezvous with us at meddlesomemeeples.com. Until next time, Quester, farewell and keep thine axe sharp.